Hey, Brian, good morning. We're live. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Oh,
Um,
it's my
wh-
pleasure. Thank you, Connor.
yeah. If you don't mind just maybe really quickly introducing yourself and what you do to my audience, just so we can kind of get that base, that foundation, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I'll try to do as quick as I can. So, Brian J. Esposito, CEO and founder of Esposito Intellectual Enterprises. It's a 23 plus year career, always as an entrepreneur, starting, finding, and building companies. Present day, there's over 110 companies in my holdings. There's over 200 joint ventures around the world and proudly operating in over 25 different industries. Through the cultivation of my career and history, in August of this year, I acquired and took over a public company known as DLMI and operating as their CEO. We've accumulated such an incredible arsenal of advisors behind us. We're bridging the idea of traditional stock securities with the future of digital SEC regulated security tokens, kind of changing the game there. We've got a big spotlight on us, and we've got some great momentum there as well.
No, that's a great, succinct introduction. I'll say I've had other guests on, right, and I can definitely get it more drawn out. So do I love that.
I'm a worker.
So
How about that? I can make
yeah.
it even quicker than that.
Well, yeah. And I think that comes down to efficiency. Or I was looking at your LinkedIn profile before we started this morning, and you say that time is our most precious commodity. And I just hear that you have 110 different companies in your portfolio. And I just want to know how you approach time management. Maybe we can start there because that's a question that was top of mind for me. Just considering I cannot even imagine having to deal with 110 different companies. And then you mentioned you're the CEO of one, you're doing podcasts with me and other people. So anything you can help me and the audience understand in terms of time management?
Yeah. Well, again, I've been working since a teenager, so my answer to time management's an evolution of constantly fixing and adjusting. And the biggest thing you want to focus on is got to eliminate toxic time wasters from your life. A lot of us get caught up in ideas or potential deals or business transactions that may not even be real. So when you start to learn how to avoid them from getting into your daily routine, as well as I don't use Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. So my social work is LinkedIn and Twitter, but very specifically about our companies, what we're doing, getting people excited, and announcing great momentum. So for me, it's avoiding toxic situations. And there's really no drama anymore in my life as it relates to the professional world. We've just got great seasoned professionals around us, exceptional management running the companies that I'm involved with. But again, it doesn't happen overnight. You asked me this question 10 years ago, it would have been a completely different answer, and a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressures. But you work at it. You just figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you. But I think it's always important that you look inward and know and address and be aware of what you need to fix. One of the other things I think is really important is to not blame other people for situations you find yourself in, because it's even more wasted time. You want to know, how did you get into that situation in the first place? What mistakes did you say? What actions did you do or not do? And your job as a human being that's evolving is to avoid that same situation from happening again in the future. So the more experience, the more practice you go through, you start to become hopefully a well-rounded, not really high emotional ups and downs, and just do good work with good people.
No, I think that's great. I also want to ask you, it seems like to me, from my perspective, it would be a burden to have all this responsibility, all these companies that you're investing in that you may need to answer to. But I would assume that's not the case. I mean, is it a labor of love from your perspective as well, and that allows you to take on so much?
Yeah, I built this model because for a bulk of my career, I was the person that made other company and people more wealthy. And then I was chasing them for promises and chasing them for what I was due. And that was a crappy place to be in. So that's when I said, okay, well, I need to own as much as I possibly can of the pie. So depending on if it's technology, if it's apparel, if it's a consumer product, if it's music or IP, I had to stop reaching out to other people or companies and bringing them around what I'm doing to make them more wealthy. So that's why you see this ecosystem of so much, because these companies help one another. They share resources. They open up opportunities. It's definitely not a burden. The only time it's a burden, and it's really not anymore, is if I invite the wrong caliber of people into my inner circle. I don't really mesh well with egos or people driven by materialistic things or money, or if they think more and more money is the idea, success. Those are the people that I know it's going to get me in harm's way because they'll do anything to make more money. So for me, it's always looking for people with empathy, good integrity, morals, character, and value, and hardworking, decent people. And when you have that in your environment, there's really no burden. And the issue comes with communication. So some things can take a minute and just go. Some things take years, and they got to be nurtured. And you got to wait for the timing of the market to catch up. You got to wait for other things to kick in. But it's as long as everybody understands that the timelines and communications, and the idea of maybe things will take a little bit longer than they're supposed to, then everything just works.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned trying to get a piece of the pie, so having equity. And can you kind of speak to, or I'm curious, you mentioned earlier in your introduction that you have always been an entrepreneur. Have you ever worked a hourly or salary based job in your career, or has it always been building things that you own?
Always building. Yeah. And I used to take advisory roles. I stopped that in 2016. I don't take board roles because my best use of time and skill is to be in the trenches with management. So making sure I'm part of their routine and knowing what's happening so I can add value, help, or protect them if they're in harm's way. The other thing is if I take advisory roles, which I don't anymore again, I don't know what's going on. So if those CEOs or management are not acting responsibly or having fiduciary responsibility or ethical fiduciary responsibility, and they're doing things with the cash flow or money that shouldn't be done, that puts me in harm's way. And I would never know that if I'm just acting as an advisor. I need to be in the trenches with the team. I need to have that management role. I need to have that access. So my model again has evolved to where it is today, which I think is pretty sound, and hopefully it continues to even get better. But that's the way that I work. I need to be part of those teams, and I need to be brought into those companies, and then my world opens up to them. So it's access to capital, it's access to new opportunities, new business, pipeline of business. The other thing I do is I try to de-risk everything as much as possible. So I want to help companies succeed. So the best way to help them succeed is to help them earn or learn how to earn money and create revenues. Everybody gets caught in this. I want to be a unicorn, or I want to have this giant valuation that's not sustainable. Like that's not reality. That's not how I grew up with the idea of building a business. You gotta have a profit if you want to stay in business. So it's reprogramming and then getting these companies to have a strong pipeline of opportunities that's tangible and that's sustainable.
Okay. And was that always intentional to never take a salary position, right? Because the way I look at it, I work for a salary now and I understand it. I mean, I'm capped at, no matter how productive I am, I still make the same amount of money every 2 weeks. I mean, and going back to your approach to time and time management, understanding is precious. Is that always intentional in saying, I understand that if I have equity in these companies, it'll give me a better ROI, more leverage? You're just kind of thinking back to when you started your career. Why go directly into building things?
I just think I think entrepreneurs have this pull at them. Some start earlier than others. I started really early. So for me, it's not even control. It's that I want to create, and I want to do it without the restrictions of outside influence. So I want to build. And if you're say you're an amazing construction worker and you want to build something amazing for a piece of land, you can only build whatever the architect and the landowner or the business or the building owner wants you to build. And you can sit there and say, God, I could do so much more with my talent and my skills. It's a shame that they're just using this property for this type of building. That's the best way I can describe the comparison, because I don't like the idea of being restricted when I know there's more that can be done. And I know there's maybe a better way that things can be done, but I love working with teams. So there's that catch-22. I love being in a team environment. I love having the right people in the right positions, supporting them with the right tools and resources so they can be successful and feel good about themselves. But I want to make sure that we do the best possible play we can for whatever we're going after, and without the ulterior motives or restrictions that a boss would have on me.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you ever struggle And I think this is what holds a lot of people back or entrepreneurs back is just the fear portion of it. So, right, you're not capped by a boss or by structure, but you're completely on your own. I mean, there is no salary coming in. So how do you approach that, or getting over that, or getting started when you say, okay, I still need to pay rent, I still need
Yeah.
to eat, and I'm going
Oh,
out on
that
my
fear.
own.
Yeah, that fear that never goes away. More money doesn't mean less problems. So you just always, I don't know. It's secondary to me. Like when you're not motivated by money, that fear is not always so prominent. Like if you had a very expensive lifestyle and you drove very fancy cars or went on ridiculous vacations or lived in a monster home, those fears and those pressures as it relates to money is much stronger. But if you have, a normal spending behavior, you don't need much, then you can really do a lot. And you don't have that issue of feeling inferior, feeling inadequate, or chasing something. So for me, it's not about the money's unnecessary. You need that to pay your bills, like you mentioned, but that's not my God or my North Star. It's about creating something that I know that we can create with a great team and great support, getting it out into the market, figuring out the right strategy, the right story, the right price points. And then from there, it clicks, the earnings come in, and then you have capital to support people, you have capital to grow product extensions or support that company or hire more people, whatever it may be. But my fears were always not for me, but for the people that depended on me. And I've been through hell and back multiple times. So I never want to put somebody in harm's way. But as an entrepreneur or a startup company or a founder, there's always a risk of delays or something going wrong. That's where communication comes in. And that's where having the team understand that, hey, listen, this could go great. This could take a long time. This could, I don't like to use the word fail because I don't think anything ever really fails. You just learn from it and you just fix it. So for me, the fears were always on. I never wanted to disappoint people that were believing in me or supporting me in what we were going after. But for me, I don't care if I fall on my face. I talk about it. Like, here's what I did wrong, because I think there's value in that. Here and now, I know what not to do for the next run or the next time.
Are you able to share maybe a specific story that kind of is vivid in your mind of like, hey, or I don't know, you're up late, can't make payroll, or things aren't going the way you thought they were with a early venture?
Sure. I mean, there's a million of them, unfortunately. With my early company, I started a pretty successful beauty company. We had stores, full global distribution. I was the first to build a website for the beauty industry in the late 90s. So it was really good timing. Love technology. And I knew Amazon was going to be the place where people went for everything. I knew that early on. So we were Amazon.com's first beauty luxe retailer, and we had all of our products up there, over 25,000 SKUs, or I think 23,000 SKUs. So that quickly became our earning vehicle. The website still did great, and we were always driving traffic there. But Amazon quickly became that's revenue channel number one. And their model, especially early on, and I think possibly even worse now, is not very small business startup friendly. They want to, like I built, they want to own as much as possible, and they'll use people like me to find good products, to build an audience, and then they'll go and make deals directly with the manufacturers and cut off people like me. So I found myself a few times in their ecosystem where they just would turn our account off for no reason. We do everything right. We answer customer service questions within seconds. We ship out products within seconds. But because they had they wanted to replicate what I was building, they would turn our account off. Now you're talking about millions of dollars just being shut off because I was at their, at their mercy. Then it's not like you just call them and speak to a human being. You go through all these ridiculous steps to try to find somebody. And I don't give up. I will fly out there and I will go in every office until I find somebody. So, but that also programmed into my brain. I cannot rely on other people. I cannot rely on really anybody. It goes back to my model that it is today. I need to control as much as possible because there's just so much here. There's so much responsibility here. There's so many extensions and partnerships. So, I'm grateful for Amazon turning off our account and almost bankrupting my company for no reason, because it taught me to not put myself in, I guess it's an eggs in one basket type of thing, but it really taught me not to depend solely on anybody or anything, because I don't have control over that situation. It's not a safe place for me to be. If it was just me, a one man show, all right, that's a little different story. But because there's so much around it, I could not continue to be in that type of system.
Yeah. And so how did that end? How did you pivot? I mean, were you able to get through to them
Oh
and
yeah.
they
Oh, we
reopened
know.
your account?
You have to kill me if you want me to stop. That's the only way you're gonna. The
Yeah.
only way I'm
Okay.
gonna disappear. But yeah, but that's deteriorate. I mean, that cripples you. So
Hmm.
it kills your soul when things like that happen, especially when there's no reason for it. That's the crappy part. It would be one thing if we were shipping out all counterfeit products, or we weren't shipping products, and we were not answering customers. Like that would be that would be on me. But when you're doing everything correctly and you're being punished, and young. I mean, I'm in my early 20s when this is all happening. So you really you can do one of two things. You can just get really bitter and pissed and hate the world, but I don't want to act like that. So I was very conscious. Okay, it's a problem. I'm the one that made a decision to make Amazon our, one of our biggest revenue sources for this company. So I need to continue to diversify. So that's why the holdings is so large now and the reach is so large, because if there's ever an issue like that again, at least there's other channels and other companies and opportunities that are earning, and maybe employees in a different company that all of a sudden there's a problem, they can move over to another project or another company. And like, I just want to keep this machine moving and support it. But you can't do that if you're constantly relying on other companies or people. It just doesn't work.
Is that still an issue you face with Amazon today? I know you mentioned that was in the early days. Have things changed with them? I mean, the Amazon of the late 90s is probably much different than today.
Yeah, well, we were fully partnered with them until 2017. Now it's again diversifying, using things like Shopify and WordPress and Wix, and this TikTok shop is going to blow up and probably take a big chunk out of companies like eBay and Amazon. So it's just on the retail side of what we do, and the consumer product side is what we do. It's building and controlling our customers. Not, I should say controlling, but those are our customers, right? Those are our database. We don't want to share that with anybody. We don't want other companies to exploit that. We're very privacy focused. We're very concerned about who work with us, who orders from us, who our B2B partners are, or B2C customers are. So that's our ecosystem. And again, as long as you're smart about capital and you're not being ridiculously obnoxious with spending habits, then you can build good businesses around your own controlled little ecosystem and be very specific on how you go out to other platforms like an Amazon or an eBay or I think that's probably, or an Alibaba.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned something, and I think it's interesting, and I don't understand what exactly they're trying to do. Can you maybe expand on, from your perspective, what you think TikTok's trying to do from an e-commerce perspective? Because I'm on there every once in a while, right? You scroll and you see an ad for a product, and I think they have that shopping tab. I mean, are they trying to become an Amazon? I don't know. Where are they headed with that?
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever distribute and store and warehouse products. If they did that, I think that would be the stupidest move they've ever done. But to be that middle person when you have somebody's attention for a ridiculous amount of time, I mean, you're talking about people that spend hours on this thing, and you're filtering them, you're brainwashing them to buying habits of what you believe that they would like and instantly buy. And then you have companies like Affirm or Afterpay or Klarna, where it's like, even if you can't afford it, I can afford 20 payments a month for the next 6 months, $20 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think they're going to take a huge hit out of companies like Amazon, and let's just focus on Amazon. And good, because what they've done to companies like me and what they do to independent small mom and pop companies, they destroy them. It's like Home Depot coming into a town and your local hardware store just disappearing. And I don't take kindly to stuff like that because it destroys a little local economy. It kills a family's business. So when you have companies like Shopify that have done great to make independent mom and pop stores actually build businesses again, and now with TikTok, I think you're going to see these influencers that have huge audiences be able to help brands really explode because they have direct access to these micro influencers or major ones, and you can take a product from zero to hero and not have to be a slave to what the demands of an Amazon would have.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So I guess just to confirm, TikTok's it's just the advertising platform or just the e-commerce platform, and then you either drop ship or you have your own product that is sold through there.
Well, that shop just started, so I'm assuming it's going to be drop ship or it's directly tied into your own 3PL or warehouse or back-end system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't assume they would have TikTok warehouses or TikTok trucks driving around like Amazon. That's a ridiculous cost, and that's not a very profitable business for Amazon.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm reading the book, The Psychology of Money. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but I think most people know this, that AWS is really where Amazon makes their money, right? It's not on their e-commerce. So maybe can you speak to that? And in the book I'm reading, it kind of talks about long tails, right? So how one event or one product within a company can have outsized returns versus everything else. Would you say that is something that resonates with your companies? Is that something you try to achieve running all these companies? Like, hey, out of the 110 companies I run, these 5 are going to be my shining stars that drive the majority of the profitability, or is that not what you found?
No, I'm not. I mean, it could sound stupid, but I need them all to succeed. I'm not the VC model where you have $1 billion unicorn and 99 failures and you're a successful VC. I'm committed to all of them. They're all important to me. Again, some things take a little bit long time to nurture and get to profitability or where they need to be. But no, I don't want any shining stars. I want them all to be. I mean, if it's just a North Star in the sky, that'd be a pretty boring, shitty sky. There's a lot when you look up at night. So I want them all to be important and relevant. So for me, having one that may be humming a little bit better, I want the other ones to be able to tap into that and pull from that to rising tide rises all boats type of philosophy. So no, that's not my mentality because I guess it even stems back to when I launched the beauty company. Like I needed to always have the next biggest thing in our pipeline that kept us relevant. I needed to keep launching products. So I think that's brainwashed in my mind as these holdings continue to grow. I just need to make sure that we're always staying relevant and that we have the next thing in here somewhere. And I may not know what it is, but the market will tell us, oh, look, we're sitting on something that had no need last year. And all of a sudden, this company, this IP, this tech, there's a huge need for it. Let's get it out to the market. We already have it built. We already have it ready to go. Mm-hmm. But you can't know that if you just focus on the winners.
Yeah, and it sounds like almost redistributing strategies from, I don't know if you want to call them winners, but companies that are doing well right now, and then applying that to another company in your portfolio. Like, would you say it's true that a strategy that works for a beauty company can be applied to a liquor company? Do you look across verticals?
My business philosophies are very old school. They're from like the 1900s. Go out and sell something and make sure there's a profit in it so you can replenish the inventory or stock or promote it or hire people. So the only difference is the messaging, the storyline, and the channel. So, each company or brand or product or IP or solution, service, technology, piece of music, piece of content, TV, film, across the board, there's got to be a unique, strong storyline to support it to connect with the audience. That's the difference. The business model behind it has to be, okay, we're not a non-for-profit, so what is the pricing mechanisms for this? Where's the distribution for this? how do we make money? How do our partners make money? And how do we support our employees and our fixed costs for that company? That's all timeless math. But the interesting and fun part is the marketing and the messaging. That's where you have to really differentiate. You can't apply the same mechanisms for all of them when it comes to that storyline. There's got to be something unique and special about each one.
And is that where the profit or the margin comes from? Because I'm thinking about some of the verticals you operate in. You know, you can go back to beauty, and you're competing against I don't know, a Revlon that has huge economies of scale, or you talked about Amazon where they kind of steal your IP and drive the cost down because they can. So how do you face that when you're kind of, from my viewpoint, you're competing in a commoditized space? How do you make sure that there's profit so you remain sustainable when you're competing with these giant companies?
Again, it all depends on, I would call it the nut, right? What is the nut of this product that's going out to market? If you don't have a pipeline of potential customers, but you make 1 million units and they're sitting in a warehouse, then that's an issue. But if you are starting something and you think there's a play for it, but you have really strong supply management on your components, your ingredients, logistics, packaging, and you make 10,000 units of something and they move, well, it's a much different story than making 1 million units of something and they don't move. So the profitability all depends on your strategy, your pipeline of anticipated orders. For me, I like to go get purchase orders from retailers that we work with or have relationships with. I want to de-risk it as much as possible. The purchase orders are bankable, especially if they're from a accredited retailer or e-commerce company that's got strong earnings and strong history. And you can go and bank that purchase order, and you can get your production into manufacturing and delivered without tapping into your own cash. So it's all case by case. It depends on your strategy. It depends on how do you go out and build a demand as much as possible before you even make product one. Again, it's all case by case. But the biggest brands I ever launched, if we're just focusing on consumer products, they were brands that there was a passionate, incredible human being making something out of their bathtub or in their kitchen, and they bought the little components, they filled it, and they built this cult following. Those are the brands, because of that passion and drive and that energy, that now sit on the shelves of Sephora or Target or in Walgreens. Those are the brands that the Revlons, the L'Oreals, and the Estee Lauders of the world buy, because people connect with people. People connect with a product because of great messaging and great passion and energy attached to it. But I feel like in today's world, it's so easy to go out and be in business for yourself and do it in a very calculated, de-risked way. When I was building our site, there was no WordPress or Wix or GoDaddies. It was millions and millions of dollars to build what I wanted to build. I didn't have that money. So I taught myself how to code, and I built my own little mousetrap. So the tools and resources today for people to be in business for themselves, it's pretty exceptional. And if you feel that pull as an entrepreneur that you want to do that, you can do it in a way where you still can have your corporate job. You can still be a teacher. You can be very methodical about how you position over, where you're not putting yourself at risk. You're not taking an extra mortgage out on your house. You're not going into major credit card debt. You can maneuver in a very calm way to be your own force, my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I think there's a lot of stuff we take for granted, or I do, right? I mean, I was born in the 90s, so I'm kind of the first internet generation. But something I think about a lot, you say it's a lot easier to go into business, right? But doesn't that mean that you create makeup out of your bathtub? There's hundreds of other people doing it, which creates more competition. I don't know if you think about that at all, and how, as an entrepreneur, you said, hey, it's easier to go in business, but how do you overcome that increased competition where it seems like everybody has a Shopify store and they're trying to go into e-commerce?
Not everybody has your neighborhood or the school that your kid goes to, or your little local ecosystem. People See, I took myself getting caught up on this a long time ago because I often say if I compared myself to Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos every day, I would feel like a complete failure. I'd feel miserable. So if you want to be in business for yourself, then the first thing you should not do is look at any potential competition because that starts to cloud your perception on what is in you that you want to create that's part of your DNA. And you can make anything today within reason, and you can sell it in your local economy. You can go to a local. If we just want to keep sticking on beauty, there's local stores that you can go and sell your products. So you can work with the manager there and say, "Hey, I'll come in here. I want to talk about my product. We get them on your shelves. I want to tell your customers about it. And let's move product. Go to your local grocery store and you take ads out at baseball, little league fields. There's a lot you can do to build a brand in your own community. So you don't have to be like, oh, if I'm not in Sephora, I'm a failure. Or if I'm not a billion-dollar beauty brand, I'm a failure. That's the way society has programmed people. But hey, if you can make an extra $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a year in your world, that could be a ton of money. That could be life-changing for you. And if you can do that every year on top of keeping your regular job, on top of getting your health benefits from your regular job, and then position it when you've built it where it's sustainable and you have this little local force of a community that's supporting you, then you get a little bigger. Then you go into the next county or the next state. So my mind is one customer at a time. So when you ask somebody else, their mind may be, I want 1 million customers next year, and if we don't do that, we're a failure. See, I don't operate that way. So it all depends on who you're talking to, Connor.
Yeah, I think I resonate with that, where you just small steps, right? And I think another piece that this kind of connects into this is having a long-term vision. Is that an approach you employ with your companies, the companies you invest in? You mentioned in your example, like, hey, I need 1 million customers in a year, where I failed. I think for me too, even in starting this podcast, it's something I've had to overcome. It's like, hey, you need to be able to set yourself up to do this in perpetuity, regardless of result, and you tweak it and you improve as you go. So I don't know if that fits in with your career experience, companies you work with, but having that long-term approach.
It has to be. You have to have a long-term approach. Otherwise, you're not going to feel any. I think it's really important. Like, let's go back a little bit. Your mental health and wellness on anything you do is extremely important. So for you, you're up at the crack of dawn, right? I'm honored to be doing this conversation with you. You're on the West Coast early as hell. You're going next after this, you're going to go into your normal work day, but you're hustling to create something because you want to do this. For me, if I was you, I'd be so happy getting one new listener a day. I would demand, and we do it organically, I would demand of the people that you bring on to talk with you that they have to do everything they possibly can to help you promote it everywhere. Not just you promoting it. You want to use my network too to help you. That's how true partnerships work. You're giving me your time and your brand to talk about my story. I want to be able to use my time wisely, share it. Hopefully it resonates with one person that you're listening to. For me, that's great. That makes me the happiest person in the world. If somebody heard something in this and inspired them to do something, well worth my hour. But now even more worth my time is after we do this, we promote it together as much as possible. And then hopefully, maybe because of my reach, caliber of people that start to come on your show, it's elevated with larger audiences. And that snowball starts somewhere up in the top of the mountain, and then it becomes an avalanche and completely a monster. But you can't do that unless you start somewhere, and starting somewhere is getting one listener at a time, and then it's just going to click. But if you give up, you ain't going to get anybody to listen.
Yeah. Is there anything you do to, in those times where you do want to give up when you're in the beginning? I mean, just for anyone, maybe for me, for anybody out there, where it's like one listener a day or a week just doesn't seem like enough. Like, how do you continue to push through that?
Well, let me ask you, why isn't that enough? Because you set your expectations to a level that you think is what society demands of you, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
When you started this, how many people did you just, without even doing anything, did you think would listen to you?
I didn't think. I guess when I first posted my first episode and it got 12 views, I was like, crap, that's not very many. Um,
Why? Why? There's
I know.
8 billion
Yeah.
people out there. Like, why that you should be like, that's amazing. Let's
Yeah.
assume they
Yeah.
all had 2 ears. That's what is that? 24 ears were listening in to you. That's amazing.
Mhm.
You come out with no background in radio, I'm guessing, no
No.
background in media, no background in anything, content creation and for your own
Mm-mm.
brand,
Nope.
and you
Nothing.
found 12 people. That's amazing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But what's fun about that is building on that, because maybe the next show there was 24, then maybe the next show there was 48, and then it
Hmm.
starts to click. It's I'm not trying to sound like I'm talking down to you. I want people to feel amazing by, oh my God, somebody listened to me. Like you should have felt that's great, not, oh, that's not a lot. And that's what sucks about the world. Companies can go and raise $100,000 and they think, oh, that's not a lot, because they're watching companies raise tens of millions of dollars. It's just there's this disconnect in reality, and people need to feel good about themselves. So when I hear you and the great work that you're doing, it kills me that you didn't feel great about. You set out to do something, you did it, you're building a brand, and you're creating an audience. I mean, it's amazing. That's what this life's about: doing following your passions and connecting with people.
Yeah, I will say though, as I do this more, you get used to it, where you say, okay, I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, and I just need to keep going, right? So your expectations may get shattered, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that just happens with time and repetition. One other thing though I want to mention. So there have been days, and I cut my podcasts up into shorts and TikToks, and there have been days where I will get 6 subscribers on YouTube. Can you maybe speak to, and I'm sure the same thing happens with your companies where you crush through sales expectations, but that kind of sets a new baseline. So how do you deal with that? I get 6 subscribers, but then a week goes by and I only get 1 or 2 more over that next week. And I'm like, crap, I was at getting 6 in a day and now I've fallen off a cliff and I need to get back to that baseline of getting 6 a day. And so, as you grow, the expectations grow as well. And that can be sometimes hard to manage.
Yeah, again, it depends on your strategy. See, I like to look back in maybe a little bit larger increments than a week, because there's a lot could happen in that week. It could be a war in the Gaza Strip, for example, and there's so many outside distractions that don't necessarily mean that you were doing anything wrong. There's just a lot of options for the 24 hours a day that we have to listen or watch or experience. I would maybe look at a year and say, here's what I want to try to accomplish in that year. And then start working it back monthly. I don't know how long you've been at this, but if you want to get 6 subscribers a week, then go 3 months and see if you got, was it 24, 48? It's early. What's the other?
Yeah.
64. Is it 64? Did you get 64
Hmm.
subscribers in 3 months? Then you did it, right? But if you're just looking at week by week by week, so maybe 1 week you'll get 12, maybe 1 week you'll get 2, maybe the next week you'll get 20. Like you can't look at it so cut and dry, especially as you're beginning to build and perfect your system and your reach and your, how do you get an inbound funnels to your call to action. So I would be a little bit more lenient on looking backwards over a certain amount of time and seeing if you hit what you realistic expectations. If you set yourself up,
Hmm.
trick your mind and say, I want 30 subscribers this month. That's 1 a day. Maybe it's 60 and you're amazing. But if you said, oh, I want to get 60 subscribers this month, and you only get 60, you'll be like, shit, I didn't even exceed my expectations. But if you come back and you start to, again, trick your brain and build this really important confidence about having a vision of what you want to accomplish and either accomplishing that exactly or a little bit more, that's how
Hmm.
you build anything.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and I think I'm as I go more and more, that I'm able to do that. I'm able to set realistic expectations. Since we're kind of talking about this, though, I'm curious of your approach. You say you only post on LinkedIn and X, Twitter, whatever it's called today. Do you have personal brand, personal social media? Do you have follower goals? Is that a goal of yours to grow up this following? And I would assume so, potentially because it expands your reach, your network. You can find new companies to invest in. Is that your strategy when it comes to social media?
My social media strategy for personal, the companies are different. So for me personally, has always just been to share my experiences and hopefully and being vulnerable in those experiences. And what I believe is a good, healthy mentality to have as an entrepreneur. That's not easy for anybody. So that's just been an organic audience that has built up over. I've been on LinkedIn since the beginning. I went on Twitter and now X on because some jerk of a person said I was out of touch with social media and said you can't even build your own following. I said, okay, I'll take that challenge. And I went on Twitter and I don't even know the year, 2015, maybe 2016. And a couple months there was 20,000 followers. So I'm like, well, I think I know what I'm doing. But I do enjoy X because it's, especially for our music, our digital asset holdings, certain industries really thrive very well in that environment. There's great audiences, great communities. But for me, I'd be happy with just being on LinkedIn. Those are peers to me, the way I look at it. These are people that, it's 900 million people now. So it's all different types of industries and all different types of levels of their careers. But for me, it's the inbound I get when we do a discussion like this, or if I do a LinkedIn Live, or if I'm asked to speak somewhere, or just being in that community and feeling somebody feel a little bit stronger because they saw something that I posted or I shared something that I think could be good advice or a good way to look at things. That fuels me. That fuels me as a human being to use that platform in that capacity. I don't care if I have 1 follower or 1 million followers. It's just, for me, it's an outlet to, maybe it's therapeutic for me to share my journey in a platform like that. And if it connects or resonates with somebody, connected and resonated with you when you asked me to be on your great show. So, there's energy there. And if I can use it to the best of my ability, not to be obnoxious, not to share, we got a $10 million deal today, wheels up. I hate that crap. It doesn't work for me. But if I can use it in a way where it can inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs, or it can help somebody push another day that maybe they just needed one more day to not quit, where it all just clicked, that's why I spend my time there.
Yeah, I think a word that comes to mind is authenticity. Would you say that you resonate with that? Just being your authentic self through social media?
Yeah, and as genuine as possible. Yeah, I would think that's. There's nothing fake there, and it's raw and real, and that's how I use it.
Okay, and I'm curious too. We kind of talked about getting small wins, and we're talking about social media followers. I'm curious. So you have over 37,000 followers on LinkedIn, thousands of followers on Twitter. Kind of a belief that I hold is that the following compounds as it grows. Is that something that you found as you grew following on Twitter and LinkedIn? Once you were to 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, it was much easier to get the next 1,000. Would you say that holds true? That's something I'm kind of keeping in mind as I try to grow as well.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm just not I don't look at the followers. I look at my engagement in my content. I look at the comments and I look to connect with one person. I want to see if what I wrote or shared resonated with one person. So I'm not looking at it like, I need to grow my followers because I need to do X, Y, and Z. For you, because you're building an audience and much different mentality. You want to see what connects and resonates with whatever you're building. Like this show and your platform, like, what do you want it to be? Do you want it just to be a bunch of different people telling a story, or do you want there to be a concise thesis about, I want my listeners to get this out of every show? See, for me, that's the story, right? That's the branding of you. I want them to get X, and I'm not talking about Twitter. I want them to get X out of spending an hour with me. That's where you need to think about, okay, how do I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm saying if I was you, how do I get my audience to build, but an audience that's building that is getting this really substantial value from my content and not watered down content, not one day about this, one day about that, because then you're trying to be everything to everybody, and that's very difficult to be. And you may think that's the right approach to build an audience, but again, my mindset is let me get one person at a time that loves my content because I'm providing this. I can't give you an example of what that is because it's your show. Like, what am I providing? What value am I providing? Who's going to give me an hour of their time? Because after that hour of their time, they're going to feel stronger. They're going to go out and take over the world. They're going to come back next week or in 2 weeks or tomorrow, whatever your format is. That's the social media following I would want to build if I was building up your show.
Yeah. I think it's a great point. It's kind of having that mission statement, and I think it's still something I'm figuring out. But
yeah, and that's okay.
I think I can't figure it out. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if you resonate with this at all, because I think another piece of it too, if you think about the biggest podcasters in the world or the Joe Rogan, I think the reason that, and I'm not sure that he has a specific mission, but I think the reason he's been able to do it for so long is he basically says, hey, I'm going to talk to people I find interesting about things I find interesting, and therefore I can do this forever. And if you want to listen, great. But if not, I'm going to be doing it anyways. I don't know if that resonates as well, because I think you can also struggle, or you can put yourself in a hole, and you can say, okay, I'm going to talk about to just founders or to just people that have built whatever, enormous wealth. And then you say, crap, can I do that for 20 years? Or I don't know. It's just something that comes to mind is the sustainability aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan interviews some of the most iconic, influential people around the world with huge audiences. You never hear him say, hey, we got Gary, Applebee's manager, coming in today to talk about the sampler. I mean, so his audience is massive because the people that he comes on the show are massive. And that's smart. He has that ability as a celebrity, an entertainer, an icon, somebody that people respect. He does his research tremendously when he has guests on. The conversations are phenomenal. But he depends, and maybe he would have a different answer to this, but as someone that sees what he's built, he depends on people that have equally as big audiences to come in, and combined, you have a big show. You have continued big shows because there's always somebody new coming on that has hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fans, followers, customers. They're authorities in their space, incredible authorities in their space. So his format's phenomenal, and he worked his ass off building that. And I wish him nothing but continued success. But he depends on, as I depend on, the pipeline of the next big thing to stay relevant.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something I think about, right? And I appreciate you coming on, right? I think when I'm trying to build, it depends on people that have bigger followings than me, having a willingness to come on and speak with me, right? Because to your point about Joe Rogan, he compounds off of the other people's following, but he needs to have that following first to get them on, which is interesting, right? So I don't know, just something I've thought about as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can pivot a bit. Another thing I want to talk about, and something I'm always interested in, is when you're trying to build companies, you need to acquire customers. And you've talked about this earlier, you also need to acquire or hire the right team that's going to run the company. Can you expand on your approach of how you hire or how you identify those founders that you want to invest in, and then in building a great team around them? Is it just kind of at this point in your career something you can do naturally, or is there a specific framework you use?
It's a very natural process. No capital goes into anything until I'm brought into the company as a team member. Each company's case by case. I work first, actually back up. I need to connect with management and leadership on empathy, ethics, values, principles, and morals. First and foremost, I don't care if they're doing $1 billion a year. I don't. That's over here in a different bucket. Once we connect on that, and I feel like I can add value and I can really make a difference, then we have a very simple process. Send me a proposal to join the team. Join the team. Then we look at their business model, where their market is, what they're trying to do, what's in the pipeline. Maybe they have things in R&D. Maybe they have products that are distressed or IP that's not really in their world, not really valuable. And then you drop it in my world and you say, oh, look at what we can do. We can go over here into this market. We could take this product into this industry. And that's one of the things I hate about the world, that it is really who you know. And I see and live that every day. And that's why my network is everything to me and the relationships are everything to me, because that's how you get things done. You pick up the phone, you call a principal, a decision maker, and you say, hey, I just got involved in this company. They got a great product. I think it can fit in your company. What can we do? Someone with me, like me and my background and my character, whenever I bring people together, well, the new companies see it. The older partners and relationships, they know I'm bringing something to the table that's worthy of my time, and that there's a play there. There's a win for everybody, because that's my model. How do we all win in this opportunity? So once that kicks in with these companies that I get brought into, and we start building a really de-risk model, we start strengthening them up, their confidence. We start getting them new opportunities, new orders, new strategic partnerships, create that momentum. Then we look at capital and say, okay, how do we fuel the business? It's not, hey, here's money, good luck, because I did that for 15 years of my career and it never worked. That's why I stopped doing that. That's why I'm actively involved. How do we build the business? Show these leaders, you've got to go out and earn money. Don't get off this raise money, run out of money hamster wheel that society has put you on. It doesn't work, because at some point you're going to be diluted out of your own company. You're going to have the wrong valuations. There's just a lot of noise, a lot of missteps. And that's to no fault of an entrepreneur. That's just what they think is the right model. The right model, like every successful company, the right model is going out and finding a customer and selling something to them that has a profit, and then rinse and repeat. Mm-hmm. And then grow from there, and then work on your profitability, not in a way where you alter. You alter the product or offer inferior products or goods or services. That's not how you work on profitability. You work on profitability by understanding the market and pricing your offering correctly, that what you're selling, and understanding distribution channels. And there's math. It's math with good vision and structure. And being a disciplined leader means knowing how to spend your personal money and how to spend your company's money.
It sounds simple, right? Sell something at a profit, sell it again.
It is. It is. It's things like Shark Tank. It's things like VCs. This whole thing got turned upside down. I think social media probably had a big part to do with it, where entrepreneurs think they have to go into this. Most of them make up a number for their valuation. Like, that's the craziest thing in the world. This is your brain. This is your heart. This is your company. And you're like, oh, I think it's worth $2 million. So I'll go and raise $100,000 and give up, whatever percentage they want to give up. Let's say it's worth $1 million. I'm going to raise $100,000 and give up 10%. What? You spent a year developing this whole project and product. You have all these vendors, all the time you spent, and then you're just going to sit one day in front of an Excel spreadsheet and say, well, I'm worth $1 million. I'll give away 10%. That's crazy. And I say it's crazy because I've done that. I started in that same mindset, and then I realized, wait a minute, that's nuts. Maybe I don't even have to give away any equity. Maybe I can go and build a team and have an equity pool for the teammates and the partners, and maybe I can just sell the product and make money. And if I ever need money, it's a hell of a lot easier to bring in money from a very friendly bank debt. There's so many programs after COVID, even before COVID, to help fuel entrepreneurship. And as much as you can possibly do without giving away equity at a valuation that you didn't even hire a firm to properly do for you is a kiss of death. And once you do that first kiss of death, your equity and your called cap table, everything's just out of whack because you didn't take a moment and breathe and say, what is this really worth? And how much do I really need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this kind of resonates with things other entrepreneurs have told me. It seems like there's kind of a sometimes there's a lack of due diligence in decision making. People kind of just make decisions on a whim. I'm going to go secure this funding, as you mentioned, because that's just what you do when you're an entrepreneur and a startup founder. Is that something that resonates? Is that people don't think through or plan their decisions?
Yeah, and no fault to people. It's a system and program that it's evolved into. Um, Not to mention the stresses that come when you start to open up a round like that and you bring in the wrong capital. That's when things go off the rails too, where you're forced to start creating returns that maybe you weren't ready for. You have large capital partners now demanding certain things. Now you can't even focus on running your business because you have other outside influencers that are trying to direct you or dictate what you should do and what you need to do. And that's a hell of a place to be for an entrepreneur when it's like somebody taking your child. It's like ransom. So you don't want to be in that position, and you don't have to be in that position, especially if you're going into being a startup founder. You can do it so carefully in today's world where you can do it on your terms, and any upside or momentum to your normal life, or I should say normal, your current life, that's a great feeling. And you do it all on your terms. And you couldn't even ask for more tools today to do things on your terms. Everything's out there. You can get business plans. I hate this AI chat, whatever you want to call it, thing like that. That's a whole other animal. But you can do everything without even doing anything today. I would kill to have these tools in 99, 98 when I started. So there's so much opportunities for people to create and earn. And have better. I want people to have better lives. I want them to not worry about their bills. I want there to be food in the refrigerator. Like that's nobody in this world should be hungry, thirsty, or without shelter. There's too much wealth in the world. It's unacceptable. But people have the opportunities now to be able to actually change their lives. But they got to have the right healthy mindset and the right strategy to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I want to back up. Why do you hate Chat GPT, or could you expand on that a little bit?
Well, I have a whole. We don't have enough time. I think we have 1 minute left on this thing. But my idea of AI, we're very cognizant about it within all of our holdings. I love it for certain manufacturing processes. I love it for agriculture. I love it for clean water, fresh water types of initiatives, because there's too many of us on this planet. And these types of technologies can, in my mind, really help ensure that there's enough food and clean water for people. That's where I would focus all of this AI right now, because it's so fragmented. It's all over the place. I'm even afraid of reading articles now, because I think almost everything's written by AI. There's not even any human journalistic integrity to ensure at least there's some fact checking on what I'm reading. So I believe one of our internal guys, great kid, Gary, he's opened my eyes a little bit on the long-term effects of AI. And I agree with him. The long-term effects of this will be better for humanity. But I live in today, and 7-8 billion other people live in today. And I don't like what it is doing for their jobs and hurting people, as far as taking, really reducing the need for workforces, which, as a public company, that's great for your bottom line, but as a human being, that's terrible for households and families. So I'm not a subscriber to it in that capacity, and I won't be here 50, 100 years from now. But I want to make sure what we're doing today helps the people of today as much as possible, and that's food and water.
Yeah, no, you make great points. It doesn't come without its consequences, and I think you bring up a really interesting point from a content perspective, right? I mean, how do you know that this blog post is not written by AI, or how do you prevent the internet just from being spammed by thousands of the same article about whatever it is? I think it is an issue. But anyways, like you said, could keep talking about that for a long time. And yeah, we're coming close to an hour here. So to round out, I'm curious, what is next for you, or as you look into the future? We've already talked about how you kind of have a long-term vision. I mean, for your companies, specifically for your fund, 5-10 years into the future, what do you want to be doing?
My life's work's coming into our public company, Diamond Lake Minerals. DLMI is the company. I do believe digital assets are extremely important to the future of creating wealth and giving people the opportunity to earn no matter where they are in the world. So what we've created is a really unique company that will focus on traditional businesses across multiple different industries, supporting our shareholders with dividend distribution as these companies grow, but also offering security tokens through our partner INX, which gives people around the world the opportunity to buy in to companies like what I'm building that they never had that option to before and actually earn from them. So for me, I really hope and believe we're building a model and just a model that I think all public companies will follow and allow people that aren't the 1% of the world to have access to good investment opportunities that help their families and help their personal wealth.
I like it. And it sounds like we could get into that a lot because I wasn't aware of that direction that you're taking things, but it sounds like it's somewhat crypto based or Web3 based. Is that fair?
Yeah. I've been in digital assets. I'll call the word crypto and security tokens are very different. Security tokens
Okay.
are regulated by the SEC, so our holdings are focused on regulation and security tokens. But yeah, I've always been in that space since inception, but not as a speculator with Bitcoin or Ethereum or other projects. Again, it goes back to my model. We build these blockchain technologies and these security token or tokenomics within our own holdings as a way to build community, as a way to create new mechanisms for capital raises and providing value for our balance sheets and our portfolio.
No, I like it. I think it ties back into technology and the opportunities that it's presenting for people today. I mean, it's just something that you're using to help grow your business, essentially, right? So I love that. To close out here, I'll give the floor to you. Where can people find you? Any final thoughts? And thanks again, Brian, for taking the time this morning.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Connor. Thank you. So Brian J. Esposito, my private holdings corporate site's EIE.ROCKS. So that's EIE.rocks. Diamond Lake Minerals is the public company, so diamondlakeminerals.com. Reach out to me anytime via X or LinkedIn, Brian J. Esposito, or you can also contact me through either of those two websites as well. Always accessible. I love to hear from people and hope your listeners have a great end of 2023.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And all that will be in the description, all your websites, your socials, so people can just find that information below. And hey, again, thanks for taking the time and best of luck with everything. I know you're building quite a few amazing companies, it sounds like. So best of luck.
Thank you, sir. Same to you.